sexual education all over the territory. And we want to focus now transversely all groups and also all cultures. We also want to guarantee the effective access, real access to abortion and attention and care post-abortion. We want to support and even participate in the promotion of corporal autonomy and sexual and reproductive health and rights, so that women or transgender persons, so that their rights are respected all over Argentina. I have to say that Argentina has decided to join the alliance uh, headed by Mexico, and that we want to ensure greater inclusiveness and less inequalities. And finally, we want to reaffirm our local policies and the international agenda for sexual and reproductive health and rights. I think that this forum is a very ambitious starting point and a good platform to carry on working together to guarantee greater equality and better rights for all. Thank you very much. Well, thank you very much to President Fernandez and Presentina Sudanov and Natalia Canem for their commitment.
And now we come to a most urgent, serious matter. The COVID-19 crisis has shown us a shadow pandemic. We've always known it was there, but we might have underestimated. And that is women of all age, from all backgrounds, around the world, who suffer from violence. And the struggle against violence against women is a concern for every country. Now, to discuss this issue, I would call on Madame Yasmin Oz, Marija Buric, Mr. Uhuru Kenyatta, and Madame Selma Zurabichvili to join me on the center stage. Thank you.
Take a seat. Thank you. Nous allons commencer avec Madame Yasmin.
We would like to start with Yasmin Oz, who's a Turkish lawyer and an activist for women's rights and for LGBT plus people. You've set up an organization which is the Chaos GL, which is the LGBTI people's informal reference group. And so, anyway, the floor is yours.
I'm Yasemin Öz. I'm 26 years feminist and LGBTI activist and also lawyer. I'm co-founder of Turkey's first LGBTI organization and board member of Association for Supporting Women Candidates. And I'm working with several feminist organizations dealing with domestic and sexual violence, trafficking, feminist cinema, and feminist publishing. First of all, thanks to UN Women for their support to us. And let us raise our voice here and discuss the issue with the decision makers of the world. Today, I would like to talk to you about Turkey's withdrawal from the Istanbul Convention. Here on my mask, the slogan of the feminist movement of Turkey, it says, Istanbul Convention save lives. We had huge campaigns to support the Istanbul Convention, but this time we couldn't achieve. Is it a surprise? It's not a surprise because global conservatism is rising everywhere, and Turkey's reflection is a part of a reflection of global conservatism, and backlash against feminist and LGBTI rights. Why is Istanbul Convention so important for us? Istanbul Convention is the highest global standard for women's rights, and it's a strategy document. As you may know, Turkey was the first to sign it and first to withdraw from it. Maybe they are confused. A big joke. Why do you give up such a global standard for women's rights? It is, I guess, because we ask for our rights, because we ask for equality. Every patriarchal system needs a role model of woman. If you obey the system, sit at the house and be a housewife, there is no problem. But if you ask for equality, then the backlash starts. I would like to tell you what happened after Turkey's withdrawal from the Istanbul Convention. Just at the same week, the police officers began to reject the applications of women who faced violence. And on Saturday, at the Istanbul Gay Pride, the police brutally attacked us. 47 people were detained. I have never seen such a cruelty at the police, although it is the gay pride is banned for 7 years. Uh, I thought that they are seeing enemies when they look at us. Uh, Gongos are, sorry, NGOs are so important in our life, and the governments recognized it, so they needed gongos to take the place, and civil space is shrinking. And in Turkey, there is a huge pressure to every oppositional people, every intellectual, but we won't give up. Uh, Women always pay the bill, like Anne Hidalgo. And pandemic showed us that we are equal. We cannot survive without each other. And pandemic also showed us how women leaders managed to fight it. So thanks to women leaders of the world. And finally, thanks to women and LGBTI people standing with us. And special thanks to Madonna for supporting Istanbul Pride. As LGBTI people, we face police violence always, but we are brave until we will link the world where bravery will not be necessary. And time started for women and LGBTI people, and it cannot be stopped.
Et Pechny, so
Now I'd like to call on Madame Peshnijovic Buric. So you are Secretary General of the Council of Europe, and the floor is yours. Thank you. Thank you very much, Elizabeth. Yeah, so we managed to chat last week about the Istanbul Convention. So President Macron, thank you very much for this invitation, and thank you for all of your leadership in this regard. I think really this is a key moment for all of us. Dear Excellencies, friends from around the world, allow me, first of all, to take this opportunity that this forum gives us to make progress, but also to discuss the obstacles that still remain before us when it comes to achieving equality between men and women. Some of these obstacles are particularly tenacious. The stereotypes such as discrimination, violence against women, but maybe the most shocking of all of the phenomena is indeed violence against women, as you mentioned before when at the outset of this panel. I don't think that we can claim that we're respecting human rights unless we, first of all, can protect women against violence. This year, we are celebrating the 10th anniversary of the Istanbul Convention. Actually, the full name of this is the Council of Europe Convention on Preventing and Combating Violence Against Women and Domestic Violence. That's its full title. 34 member states have ratified it, including Liechtenstein on the 17th of June. And non-European countries are also committed to the process, such as Tunisia or Mexico. This convention that the UN describes as an excellent instrument has clear objectives, and that is to prevent violence, to protect victims, and to avoid the perpetrators getting off scot-free. And this is wherever the convention is implemented, it is effective, and it's meant that national legislations have moved forwards concerning, for example, recognition as a crime of harassment against women, the definition of rape, and other advances.
Improvements in the way such crimes are handled by national authorities. This is good. But misconceptions and misrepresentations that many of previous speakers speaking about this convention and mentioned are undermining support for the treaty and were used as justification for one country leaving it. And this is unacceptable. The convention provides three advantages that no country alone can. It raises national standards, it provides a international monitoring mechanism, and ensures cooperation between governments in the protection of these crimes. Last year, as also many mentioned before, we saw a surge in domestic violence during COVID lockdowns all around the world. So we know that there is more to do, and also how fragile it is. Et merci encore au président Macron.
And a big thank you again to President Macron for having mentioned Simone de Beauvoir's words so many years down the track. Remember, nothing can ever be taken for granted, particularly as concerns human rights and women's rights.
We will push forward, making the clear, honest, and positive case for action. And finally, I would like to thank the French government for its support, including the organization of this debate, along with Mexico and UN Women. Thank you very much.
Merci beaucoup, chère Marija.
Thank you very much, dear Marija.
Dear Mr. President.
Now, Mr. President,
You are the President of Kenya. The floor is yours, and thank you for being with us.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And let me say what a great honor it is to be part of this historic event that I believe will set in motion far-reaching decisions and actions that will accelerate progress towards gender equality and to transform the lives of women and girls across the world. Through four major world conferences starting in Mexico in 1975, all the way to Beijing in 1995, the world has come together to build a momentum towards gender equality. At the very onset, I would like to take this opportunity to congratulate and thank the many strong and powerful women from across the globe who have brought us this far. I'd also like to take this opportunity to thank the governments of France and Mexico for hosting this forum, and to also say that Kenya is also proud to be a lead on the gender-based violence together with the United Kingdom and Iceland, along with other partners. Gender-based violence is a widespread and persistent global issue. And if we consider the statistics, for example, across the world, 36% of women aged between 15 to 49 have been subjected to some form of violence at least once in their lifetime, most often from somebody who is very close to them. An estimated 18% of women have also experienced physical and psychological violence at the hands of a partner or someone close to them in the past year alone. We can say that we have achieved quite a bit over the years. We can say that we have achieved quite a bit over the years, but I still believe we still have a very long way to go. As we speak today, over 4 million girls undergo female genital mutilation across the world, and globally more than 100, 200 women actually, alive today have undergone female genital mutilation. More than 33,000 girls are married off every day, well before the age of 18. And indeed, some of the latest data that we have from UN Women, violence against women in East and Southern African region reveals that domestic violence is the most socially tolerated form of violence against women. Data from 5 countries show that over 50% of respondents indicate that violence against women is acceptable under certain circumstances. The COVID-19 pandemic has exacerbated the situation and turned gender-based violence into a global emergency. Emerging data also indicates a surge of at least 25% in violence against women across the globe. In the past year alone, Cameroon has reported a 35% increase in cases, Central Africa a spike of 69%, South Africa a spike of 37%, and my own country, Kenya, a recent survey has shown that cases of gender-based violence had increased by more than 50% from the previous year. These are undoubtedly alarming statistics, which I believe call for urgent and very bold and corrective measures. We in Kenya have made significant progress to addressing gender-based violence, and I personally have made a personal commitment to end female genital mutilation by the end of my tenure next year, as well as an end to all forms of gender-based violence by 2030, as envisioned by the Sustainable Development Goals. So, ladies and gentlemen, against this background, allow me now to share with you Kenya's GEF headline commitments on gender-based violence to accelerate the pace and deliver concrete results by 2026 and beyond. And towards that end, Kenya commits itself to fully enforce gender-based violence laws and policies by adopting a gender-based violence indicator in the government performance contracting framework to track duty bearers' accountability on enforcement and implementation of GBV laws and policies by 2022. Kenya also agrees to ratify and implement the ILO Convention 190 on eliminating gender-based violence and harassment in the world of work by 2026. We will also invest $23 million for gender-based violence prevention and response by 2022 and increase the resource allocation of this to $50 million of own funding by 2026. We will invest $1 million every year for gender-based violence research and innovation to boost evidence-based programming by 2026, as well as establish a gender-based violence survivors fund through co-financing model in partnership with private sector, civil society, and other stakeholders for the economic empowerment of all GBV survivors. We will introduce a module on GBV in the 2022 Kenya Demographic Health Survey to strengthen the utilization of gender statistics and informing the design and scale-up, as well as evaluation of FGM and gender-based violence programming. As well, we will commit to developing a gender-based violence management and information system to strengthen gender-based violence prevention and response programming. We will also integrate gender-based violence services, including medical, legal, psychological support services, into our essential minimum package of universal health coverage this year. We will scale up the National Police Service integrated response to gender-based violence, as well as commit to gender-based violence prevention and response in crisis situations such as we are in with COVID-19, and ensure that all humanitarian response includes gender-based violence. We will strengthen our collaboration with all non-state actors, including girl-led women rights organizations, male champions, and private sector, through coordination structures such as the Gender Sector Working Group at the national and our local county levels, as well as adopt institutionalization of the multi-sectoral GEF leadership structure throughout all our leadership structures in our country. So, ladies and gentlemen, I want to conclude by saying that we will continue to work with all world leaders to ensure an end to a practice that has harmed millions, and to ensure that these practices cease and all our women and girls are protected so they in the development of our social economic agenda for Kenya, for Africa, and the globe. Thank you very much.
Kenyatta, I thank you for your ambitious commitment. Thank you very much. Et maintenant, nous allons passer
And
la
now,
parole à Madame Salomé
we're going to give the floor to Mrs. Salome Zourabishvili.
Zourabishvili. Madame, vous êtes présidente de la
Madam,
La-
you're the president of Georgia. You have the floor.
Merci,
Thank you very much,
Président, cher Emmanuel.
Mr. President, dear Emmanuel.
Savoir
Thank you for inviting me in. I would like to thank France for organizing this forum.
extrêmement
Well,
important.
this forum is a very important step in the fight, which is a permanent one,
Très longtemps,
and that will be ongoing for long, I think.
comme la seule représentante
I'm here as the only representative of 9
dans le monde, chef d'État.
elect presidents, female elect presidents, heads of state all over the world. So 9 is not that very many out of 180 something countries. We have 13 female prime ministers.
Leader,
That's not that many women who are leaders
que
who can
responsable,
lead this fight.
nous avons
That means that
plus à faire.
in our capacity
Femmes
as
leaders,
women leaders, we have all the more to do and to work
réalisées dans ce domaine aussi.
towards seeing equality in the future
Autant de chefs de gouvernement.
happen. There are
C'est par là quand même
not that many heads of state and heads of government who are women, and those are the ones who are going to fight to bring things about. So my country is aware of the responsibility, and that is why I pushed forward, and we announced earlier
Nous allons commencer avec vous, chère Nadia Mourad. Vous êtes prix Nobel de la paix 2018 et vous êtes une militante irakienne. La parole est à vous.
Seven years ago, when me and my sisters, 5 of my sisters and 11 of my sisters, and 6,500 Yazidi women were not protected. They fell victim to sexual violence at the hands of ISIS militants. I understood at that time. I was convinced that the dignity of women is not protected, and it's undervalued. And when my mother was killed with tens of other Yazidi women by ISIS, because they were older, they didn't even consider them for sexual violence. I understood. We are at a time in this world that it's very dangerous for a woman to be a woman. When a woman is sexually violated, a family is destroyed. A community is destroyed. The dignity of that woman can never be restored like before. We don't see very often, you all know, when women suffer from sexual violence, they don't often talk about it. They don't tell their stories. Why? Because in many regions, especially where I came from, in conflict regions, there is stigma. It's a shame for women to speak there. And they get disappointed because when they speak, they don't believe that something will change. They will not be protected and their rights will not be restored. When I told my story and came forward, and other women, that when they come forward and tell their stories of sexual violence, they hope that that story will be a message. The international community will stop the sexual violence against other women. When I told my story, I knew that it's too late to save myself from sexual violence and tens of Yazidis. But I knew if I tell my story, the international community can hear and listen. Together, we can prevent this in the future against other women in other regions. We cannot talk about gender equality if we cannot protect women in times of peace. How can we protect women in times of war and conflict? When there is war and conflict, it's difficult, much more difficult to protect women. 7 years ago, when the international community gave ISIS the chance and other radical groups like Taliban and Boko Haram and others radical groups to commit violence against women and use them as a weapon of war, at that time, we gave a chance to other groups to commit sexual violence and use women as weapons of war in other conflict regions. We cannot deny this. Whenever there's war, it's always women and girls that fall victim first and suffer the most at these conflict regions. When it comes to those that commit violence against women, they should not enjoy impunity. It should not be an option. When they escape justice, we send a message, a clear message to other groups in the future that you have a chance to commit violence and get away with it. When women become victims of violence, they become weak because they are easier to take advantage of, because they feel they will not be protected. And that's why after they escape and after they're rescued, they're being used again. They fall victim another time after war. Lastly, in my closing, I am not here to say what we should do, because you see and you listen and you have seen conflicts and you have seen many women suffer. But what I want to say is that there is not one solution that fits all problems that women face in the world. Every region require its own solution to deal with the violence against women.
Docteur, merci. Merci beaucoup. Docteur Denis Mukwege, vous êtes prix Nobel de la paix 2018 et vous gérez le fonds Mukwege. La parole est à vous.
You have the floor.
La lutte contre les violences sexuelles,
Well, fighting
l'agenda
sexual violence and the agenda Women, Peace and Security needs to be part and parcel of this forum and one of its priorities, because
sont victimes
mistreatments and sexual abuse against women in times of peace are the mere latent expression of the visible violences that come about in all conflicts all over the world. And in order to try and find a solution against sexual violence used as a weapon in times of war, at the hospital in Pansy, we developed a model of holistic taking care of women. Holistic meaning in all ways. A one-stop center. This includes medical assistance, psychological support, socio-economic support, and of course, legal support. Our strategy aims at transforming the suffering for those who've suffered from sexual violence into a strength for the future, and so that the women who leave our centers can find a new life and find a new dignified life in society. So we try and do everything we can so that these victims of sexual violences have their rights considered as a right to rehabilitation. And women who suffered gender-based violence cannot wait 10 years before having the right to care, basic health care, whether they have been hit by sexually transmissible diseases or HIV, or whether they have fallen pregnant involuntarily. So we have to react immediately. If society hasn't been able to protect those women, we need at least to have society be able to prevent the consequences of these mistreatment and abuses. This is a priority, a priority of the fund to support survivors of sexual violences. This fund was launched in 2019 with the support of France. And in this respect, I'd like to extend my special thanks to President Emmanuel Macron for the support he gave to this global fund. In the course of 2 years, we managed to initiate activities with survivors of sexual violences for those survivors in Guinea, in Central African Republic, in the Democratic in the DRC, and we are initiating projects in Turkey for Syrian women who are refugees in Turkey. We've already taken on interim compensation or providing interim compensation where the perpetrators of crimes do not want to live up to their responsibilities or cannot do so. But our action cannot be only compensation or repairing. Justice and accountability are the best possible tool to prevent atrocities from recurring. These atrocities are being perpetrated on the bodies of women in times of conflict. So this is the weakest link of all of the strategies to find a response to gender-based violence. Impunity seems to be more the rule than the exception, and this despite all of the advancements made in international law. So tonight, we want to call upon all of the decision makers to draw a red line against the use of gender-based violence and sexual violence as a weapon in times of war and as a tactic. A red line which would embody all of the sanctions, economic, political, and other sanctions against the perpetrators of these heinous crimes against women and their bodies. We would also like to call for the adoption of a new international coalition to do away with sexual violence as used as a weapon, uh, like the International Convention did for the elimination of chemical weapons or the elimination of personal landmines. This would be a very strong signal that we would give to the international community to say, stop, this is a reprimand and sanctions against the use of violence as a weapon in times of war. So, ladies and gentlemen, the need for changing the paradigms in the rights of women is urgent, and I call out to all of the people present here and all the men present here to develop a kind of positive masculinity and support women, work alongside women, so that together women and men can build the generation equality. Thank you very much, Dr. Danny Mukwege.
And thank you again to you very much to both of you. And now I would invite you to kindly take your seats, and I'd like to invite, ladies and gentlemen, to get you to hear from two people who are working here in France very hard on these issues. So I have the pleasure of welcoming up here through all of the work that's been done by associations and working throughout France on this issue and all of citizens and movements. And that is the very first organization in France of its kind, the Maison des Femmes, the Women's Shelter of Saint-Denis, which is a refuge for women to go to if they've been victims of sexual or gender-based violence. And to represent the Maison des Femmes, I'd like to call up Rada Khatem, who's the founder of this Women's Shelter in Saint-Denis, and François-Henri Pinault, who's the CEO of Caring, which has also been very, very invested in the fight for women's equality. Thank you. You have the floor, madam. Thank you very much. Mr. President, ladies, gentlemen, it's an honor to be here with you and celebrate this Generation Equality Forum, which is a key moment, not only for women, but for humanity as a whole. I'm a gynecologist obstetrician, and it was 5 years ago that I founded the Women's Refuge in Saint-Denis. It's a medical social center attached to the Saint-Denis Hospital, and we are a shelter for battered women. In our center, we take in any vulnerable women, be they victims of conjugal violence, sexual violence, FGM, or even undesired pregnancies. And we have a holistic approach to taking care of them. Every day, some 50 women come through our doors. And in order to care for them, we have a pluridisciplinary team with caregivers, counselors, police officers, a whole variety of stakeholders. When we put in place all of these different links that enable women to escape violence, we actually build a very strong chain. And that is what makes our model so strong, this coordination among different stakeholders. Currently, our center has proven its effectiveness, and it's starting to be replicated elsewhere, even abroad. And so you see one in Mexico, and we're delighted to see this. Our ambition currently is to replicate this model throughout France. But for this to happen, we're going to need some private investors. And this would, I think, be a very positive sign that all of society is actually ready to take a commitment against the violence against women and children. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Madam.
Monsieur Pinault,
So, Mr. Pinault, tell us how are you going to help the Maison des Femmes in Saint-Denis? Thank you, ministers, Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen. I want to talk to you about the Caring Foundation and all of the which stretches back a wee way now. We're very attached to this in the Caring Group. We decided through the Caring Foundation to take part in this coalition against gender-based violence. Some 15 years ago now, we created the corporate foundation because it was my personal coming into understanding of the reality, this scourge of violence against women. And it was once I understood the gravity of the situation, I decided to set up the Caring Foundation, which has been fighting against violence against women for 15 years now, not only here in France, but around the world. And our group's commitment actually went beyond that and had a more holistic approach when it came to helping women, because for a few years now, we've been taking our battle on two other fronts as well. Firstly, on women in their professional lives, trying to improve women's working statutes, obviously within our own group, but also equal pay, equal opportunities in the workplace, and furthermore, to try to establish equality between maternity and paternity circumstances. Our paternity paternity and maternity leave of 14 weeks is something we'd like to see rolled out around the world. And the other area in which we're battling since 2015 is in a partnership with, we have the Festival of Cannes, is through this Women in Motion initiative to try to support women in arts and culture, where unfortunately they're very underrepresented, and we find this unacceptable. So we've been very involved in women's causes, and as you said, and many speakers here today have said, women are the victims of numerous injustices, and there are inequalities of an economic nature, social nature, around the world, in every social class. of childcare. The pandemic has shone a strong light on what women and feminists knew for decades, and that is that childcare services are vital. And that is why in April we took on board $30 million and we plowed that into childcare service training so as to offer quality childcare services which will be able to assist some 250,000 women in Canada and help them return to work. In the course of this pandemic, we're seeing a revitalization of feminism, and I think that is what we need not only in Canada but throughout the world.
Significantly, not only at home, but around the world. Our government is investing $100 million to support paid and unpaid care work globally. This new commitment makes Canada the largest national donor to the care economy worldwide. And when it comes to a feminist recovery, we're not stopping there. We're going to continue partnering with feminist organizations at home and around the world, because in the last 5 years, we've seen what we can achieve by working together. I think of the almost 25 million children whose lives have been changed for the better by the Global Partnership for Education, a partnership Canada will continue to support.
I also think of the 100 feminist organizations that we have through the Equality Fund launched in Canada to defend working women's rights and also health clinics, or the nearly $40 million for women and girls through the Global Alliance of Coalitions. All up with this investment and our care, our focus on focus, this is a vital and significant sum of money, and we're delighted to announce that this money is going towards working towards gender equality. But this is only the beginning.
Is at a crossroads, and the path ahead, well, it's the one being built by women and girls, by feminist movements and women's organizations, and by people in all their diversity in every corner of the globe. This is a generation that believes in a better future for everyone. And this is a generation that knows we cannot get there if anyone is left behind. In other words, this is a feminist generation, and it needs feminist governments to stand with it. Thank you. Merci. Merci, Emmanuel, d'avoir organisé ce forum.
Thank you, Emmanuel, for having organized this forum. And now I'm like to hand back to the Madam Minister. Thank you very much, Mr. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. Now, before moving on to our next panelists, I have some good news. And especially for Gada Hatem, Mr. Pinot has announced that he's going to fund 50% of the new women's refuges that are being planned. And I'm delighted to announce that the Accor Group is also going to fund it, and it's going to fund the other 50%.
Merci. Merci.
A big thank you. Thank you very much.
Vous avez vu.
Moreover, as you've seen, these wonderful women all around us. Now I have the pleasure of introducing you to, as if it were necessary, Madame Sophia Aram, who's an actress, Caroline Fourest, who's a writer and script writer, and Delphine Orvilleur, is a rabbi, and Rachel Kahn. I'm sorry, the list is too long. I can't give all of your credentials, so over to you. Rachel, who's starting?
Okay.
Yes, sir. Yes, sorry, Madam Minister, I'm not trying to kick you out, but that's all very well. Behind all of the observations and the battles that are drawing us here together, there is an ambition, an ideal, feminism. And feminism is not only a women's business, who are the primary beneficiaries. No, it's for anyone who believes in equality. All of us are involved in feminism. My name is Rachel Khan. I'm a woman. And my father was a Muslim Gambian, my mother a French Jewish woman. I'm a writer, I'm an actress, I'm someone who's passionate about the free right to self-determination. I love métis identities that are complex and difficult to put in a cubbyhole because they're free, because I'm a French, and all for a good cause, I'm feminist. My name is Caroline Forest, and at 5 years of age, I told my mother that I wanted to get married to a woman. And I didn't realize that that was actually a taboo. So I struggled for that to change. And I'm lucky enough to live in a country where I can marry whoever I love. So, given the religious extremism and homophobic tendencies around me, I became a journalist and then a writer. And I'm just as attached to freedom of expression as I am to equality. I'm a feminist. I'm Sophia Aram. I was born and raised in Trappes in the Paris suburbs. My parents are Muslim, and I'm a humorist and an atheist of Muslim culture, which sometimes means that I have a hard day because, you know, I get threats of rape from the extreme right and death threats from certain Islamists. But everything's fine, and everything will continue to be just fine as long as we can keep laughing about it and as long as we can abort. Now, I know, yeah, it sounds like I'm summarizing. It does sound very, very brief, but, you know, we haven't got a lot of time. My name is Delphine Orviller. I'm a woman and a rabbi, which also means that sometimes my days are a bit tough. For the longest time, I heard that women didn't have any place in religious leadership because it ran counter to tradition, or that women's place was somewhere else, perhaps in the home. Or maybe they only had to fit in as women or mothers or housewives. There's so much has been said about women, but remember, all of this was to keep women out of power. There are as many feminists as there are kinds of feminists, and all of us, very different, four of us, have something that unites us very strongly. And the belief is that feminism has to keep changing the world, and it has to go cutting across all different sectors. And we've got to teach our little boys to grow up, to live and love without dominate, and teach rapists that they will cut their balls off. Sorry, did I say that? Sorry, they will be brought to justice, is what I meant to say.
Bon, alors, on va rassurer tout le monde.
Well, okay, everybody rest assured, we're not asking men to beg forgiveness for the crimes of other men. We do not even think that being a hetero male is a privilege of some kind. Honestly, no, that's not what we're saying. Rather, what we are saying is that patriarchy is a scourge which locks us all into cubbyholes about what is virile, what is feminine, and feminism enables us to open up those cubbyholes, to break the chains and get away from gender assignation. In fact, feminism enables us to explore what is feminine and masculine within each and every one of us without having to follow some model or imitate anyone.
Nous ne nous battons pas.
We are not struggling so as to be seen as women, as victims, or as different, to be somehow treated as if we were fragile little dolls. Patriarchy is already doing that. No, what we're fighting for is to be able to dare to do things, to dare to dream without being coerced or pushed into getting breasts put on, changing our vaginas or hair. No, we should be free. Our bodies should be free to live with our bodies or to change the sex that we were born with, to work and take a break out of work to raise children, and that women and men have the same rights without being judged. Feminism is a promise of freedom. It's a humanism. It's a universalism. And universalism? I think you can actually applaud universalism, can't you? Can't you applaud that? Universalism doesn't mean that everybody exacts in exactly the same way at the same time. It doesn't mean that all of us are clones of one another. No, it's about dreaming of a world in which we can be what we want to be, regardless of sex, gender, origin, background, religion. And it's not, as we sometimes hear, that we are refusing to name discriminations and obstacles. The opposite is true, I would say. Au contraire, we have to look at them squarely in the face and call them out. Patriarchal traditions, the exotic respect of cultures, and propaganda. And why not those who are trying to defend secularism, or those who fight for equality for women and girls in the classroom? Toxic, virile nationalism, fundamentalism, all of these are colluding to form barriers around our bodies and our lives. Feminism doesn't have to throw in the towel because it's scared of causing offense to any minority, culture, or religion. Because remember that cultures and religions aren't actually speaking off their own bat. Sometimes they are used by the status quo. So let us not give them the chance to dupe us. Inclusions. On today's the 30th of June, and that's actually the anniversary in which we lost Simone Weil. Remember that sexism has no color, has no religion, it's everywhere. So let us fight it everywhere. Let us do it with strength, unabashedly, but above all, let's fight it together.
Merci. Alors,
Thank you.
chargé d'annoncer la suite du programme.
I was asked to announce the
Syria and worked at Aleppo University to the end of 2011. I graduated and got my PhD from the UK, and I am a member of the Civil Society of the UN Special Envoy to Syria. As women representation in the political process is still very shy, although we represent more than half of the Syrian population. When the Syrian crisis started in 2011, everything was falling apart. The whole world have heard of our story, the story of a war, and maybe it is the worst humanitarian crisis since the Second World War. At that time, everything was falling apart around us. We were denied the freedom of expression, needless to speak about academic freedom. By the end of that year,
Ablijo be moyen be vle ti blenka jira ke na won britanji be ngen de para ro bochen ba webe wara colonial faro ke jiji we da da bira munino oje ke we ma colonial faro ke o se penye nwine o da ba ku ke ona nyo private ba woron kanana ke oje ke webe ma colonial faro ke de be nyi twen ke mo ni jo yu wa blin son be aje nwoni ke nyi ko ni pra o ke nyi san ni pra ni me jo yi ka be de ro da pa nwe Benje de diyan ben ginin ke kwa menyu wana ka jenyu ke kwa mo igwo nyu ka be na blike de du yin mo yin benge de to be o benyu benge wana ke bengo yiblanye bengo mbuchen o kinki mo monda benge nyuru mo kwanyi tode soni mo de suike nin mo yin drian kwai boti sembla juke nyi bo mu ke na de soni dre kwai nyi dero yipoi ne me dre kwai o kwini mo we sembla ke ti sembla ke me dre kwai boti pra kwini o tani mo monda benge de benyo pra ye bengere mu o nyeni mo ne son ke me ba won juke nyi ko mu o nyi san ni o munio ke mo monda benge ni mi memero konne o ni no ji meke nje ku o je monda bengo ta o bengo yidu bengo di se pare sa igu de ba ke nyuru o ji fiba blen o ji yo kwa be na wo je nyuni ke yi ka tre ni be pa pi de mu wura be ni ta to be o wa ko mu monda be ro mo bengo ke bun fwen cha ke juke de ro jiji debe panton be mu obre fropa be koni be mu be ko komna nyobe o nyobe be wane penye be ko abo chenwura nezuo bamba mi obodu toje botina ka mu pona ka debe so nye omode Ministry of Health program urogbo ke mu
anye pokra wa na wura wa mu sonati na ji na be amplede dene ji be amplede mo kwete omone ojira kunwambo kwela o dratu nyepo judu akwarati o kwatu nyi puyute o police no o gba wa corona mu won wo o nyine mo coronavirus kan ye nu odade ne kwera o se kureko ajira ba obo fon ne ma be o ji mpona ne na kokure ne sho kparem ja ne na fura mu ne sunu ne tine du ne tine na shanati e ma be na jira be tijira de kuren ba nu ka na woro ne na woro yi mara ne puam no kunya ne kuti ne be plerem de ne ba nu ore shawa nkpon kra bro akpo ke akorati onena bro akpo ete akomba repeti po ne o shankpo jisa de mbe nu ramo botunyi po yidu kwatutu e ma be mu dere mo tun detenya ne ji ne woto kwe tiwe woto wa kwe wona kwe na bi woto wa wo kare esha be nita semre bi bombo ti trone o e ma be fufo nyepo yidu ifota trone boti bore fufo nyen pape ne e ma be najira be kokure mo najira be sha ne
To
pokwa
become
wi
breadwinners. Needless to speak, about 500,000 Syrian widows in Syria fighting for bread for their children. Needless to speak about the detainees, women who are facing appalling and living in appalling conditions. I was advocating for the rights of little girls to prevent child marriage and minor marriages, to allow those girls to go to school to get education, because when the family had the privilege of choice, they will choose the boy rather than the girl, because he will be the family leader and the family bride. I also advocated for the rights of the war-injured people who couldn't find anybody to help them, even in finding their daily diapers or medication or receiving physiotherapy. And also, I fought for the education of our young generation, out of the belief that if you give them a pencil, you prevent them from carrying a bullet or a weapon. You prevent them from being a target for misleading and fanatic groups. But unfortunately, the efforts in that concern were very shy. I also was an advocacy consultant for the Syrian American Medical Society, so we advocated for the rights of civilians in besieged area inside Syria, in having food, humanitarian corridors, medication, and we reported the continuous systematic targeting of medical facilities. All these actions have been taken against me, and I was again wanted by the Syrian regime. In Jordan, yeah, please, we waited a lot, so just to conclude, just 2 minutes, yeah. Actually, in the mid of all this, I was picked up by POSE, the program that provided me with a lifeline when I lost my academic job in Jordan in 2019. I would like, from this stand, to thank POSE for providing me with this opportunity, to thank Nanterre University and Modico Research Center, to thank the French government, which provided me with a visa when it was very hard for people to get visa, which I hope it will be granted for my children to be able to join me. I believe that POSE is an emergency program that tries to help academics and scholars at risk, but the very limited fund they get make it impossible for people like me to continue. The cycle will be very short and again will be lost. What's wrong have I done? Nothing. I just defended the rights of voiceless people. And for that, I lost my job. If you ask me, what do you expect to be in the future? What do you think tomorrow will be? Allow me to say, sir, ladies and gentlemen, I don't know. The future is very bleak for me. I have no future. If it is not for people like you, for world leaders who would put their fund in the right place, not to fuel wars, but to fuel education, to fuel human rights defenders, to fuel people like me to be able to make it to life and to lift other vulnerable people will not be able to make it. Please invest in education because you invest in the future of the whole generation and you will make a hope for them. Thank you very much for having me here.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Gazul. Je vais vous donner la parole, Monsieur Darren Walker.
I'm now going to give the floor to Mr. Darren Walker, the president of the Ford Foundation.
Powerful message to us all. I am the president of the Ford Foundation, and I want to thank President Macron and the hosts. I speak on behalf of my colleagues at the Ford Foundation to announce our commitment, which is informed by our history and by consultation. I'll briefly say on our history, we at large foundations often talk about all the things we are proud of and the difference we make in the world. What we don't talk about are our failures. And there's an area that we have failed, I believe, that we hope today to begin to address. And that is the historic rhetoric around women and girls and the reality of what and how and where we have funded. We know that for many, many years, philanthropy has made the case for women and girls. What philanthropy has not done is to actually fund grassroots women and girls led organizations in the global South. We have not done that robustly, we have not done that genuinely, and we've not done that effectively. We hope that at the Ford Foundation, we begin to actually do that. And so I'm pleased today to announce that we are committing $420 million to 5 of the action coalitions. And they include gender-based violence, economic justice, tech and innovation, bodily autonomy, and SRHR, feminist movements, and leadership. So we're taking a holistic, intersectional approach because that is the way women and girls live their lives. They don't live their lives in our siloed foundation program budgets and program lines. They actually live complex, complicated, intersectional lives, and our grant making and work needs to reflect that. We are centering women's rights, girl-led feminist organizations at the heart of our response. And I'll give you a couple of examples of what I mean that manifest this. One of the things I'm most proud of is our investment in the Black Feminist Fund, which seeks to fund grassroots Black feminists to shift the dynamics around development and the discourse around women and girls, putting at the center the challenges, the aspirations of Black women and girls. We are also investing in disability rights, another area we have ignored. Funding organizations like Women Enabled, who are working to ensure that women and girls with disabilities have the resources to reframe the conversation. And of course, we're working with government because none of us alone has the capacity, the resources to make a significant difference. In our case, we're very proud of our partnership with the Equality Fund and Global Alliance for Sustainable Feminist Movements in the Canadian government, the Mexican government, the Global Alliance for Care, and of course in South Africa, where we're working with the government to end gender-based violence and femicide. So in closing, I would say now is the time. We urgently need the voice, power, genius, brilliance, and creativity of women and girls. There is no time to waste. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Walker. Et maintenant, je vais passer
And
la
now,
parole à Madame
I'm going to give the
Maha.
floor to Mrs. Maha Dahawi.
Thank you.
Let me say it again, Mrs. Maha Dahawi. You are from Sudan, and you're the winner of the L'Oreal Award UNESCO 2020 for Scientific Women. Good afternoon to all of you. It's a pleasure for me to be here. I'm going to speak English.
I am a doctor, PhD student at Sorbonne University as a collaboration with Sudan, with the University of Khartoum. And I'm here today as a laureate of the L'Oreal UNESCO for Women in Science last year, among other 20 females from Sub-Saharan Africa. And this is for us already an achievement. So I want to start by this to say that I'm here today to represent possibilities. Possibilities that I could make my dream of better education. I'm here as a glimpse of hope of so many thousands of other females from Africa. I'm here to say, as Maya Angelou says, I come here as one, but I stand as 10,000 unfulfilled dreams from women of my country, of my nation, waiting for opportunities. They are knocking for doors for a better life. I started in my circle of influence because this is, I believe, where I should start. I created a very small move called Pay It Forward. And in it, I wanted to empower women in my university to tell them that you can speak up, you can raise your voice, you can talk about your dreams. You can say that I want to be from point A to point B without being afraid. And then I learned that women learn from each other. They have this peer learning, friendships. You learn from your best friend. And so I created the notion of each one not teaches one, each one teaches five. And every message was delivered as a very rapid way in the university, and we saw the impact in confidence and psychological well-being of our students. Here where we started. I went further to research. We have consanguinity marriages. In Sudan, I'm sad to say, consanguinity marriages is more than 40%. And to reach there, to reach for the girls in the community, in the villages, I knocked every door. I talked to them one-to-one. And I told them the consequences of getting married to your cousin will not affect only you. It will affect many, many generations to come. And I want this to stop in you. I want to raise your awareness about this because I think I am one idea away from changing a human being. And here where I started. And then we went further to tell them, okay, you need to have a better opportunity for education. And here is why I am standing in front of all of you today. I'm here to tell you that we need to communicate better to provide more quality, higher education for those girls from those villages. Not only better education, but accessible for them, adjusting to their own culture. I want them to know they can do better than what they are doing today. And I want to develop platforms to communicate all of us. I am so happy to be among all of you. I heard all of your stories today, all of the achievements that have been done, but I need to communicate with you, so I need to have a better platform for a better communication. And I need to decrease the gap culture, because we have gap cultures. So I need to enhance the exchange between communities, so people will get easier in developing what they want to do. The last thing I want to say is for girls. And I sincerely say it. If I can do it, you can do it. If I'm here today, it's because I saw that every day I can see only, I'm like a car at night. I can see only 200 meters in front of me. But the only way to go forward is to go forward. Because as the car moves, the light goes further and further until you reach a point where you are like me here today. So dare, don't be afraid. Dare to ask for what you want, and you will get there. And I can guarantee you, I can promise you one thing. When you get there on the other side of your journey, whatever your journey is, you will find your better self. Maybe at your graduation ceremony. Thank you.
Sydney's doctor and fashion designer.
Migrant of the world. I'm currently doing my master's in Sciences Po, the same alma mater of you, President. I also work in economic empowerment through fashion lens for women living in vulnerable communities, internally displaced refugees when in Africa and France through my fashion brand Mayada. Also, I'm currently working with the World Bank in the team fighting FGM in Mali, Somalia, and Sudan. Okay, from here, I'll take it. I'm no longer accepting the things I cannot change. I'm changing the things I cannot accept. Standing by the words of Angela Davis. It's always a great pleasure for me to speak about women, specifically Sudanese women. They simulate the perfection in humans, strength mentally and physically, and undefeated cleverness. They proved that all the way along, from the kingdom of Kosh, passing by the Fond and El-For until the revolution of December 2018. I'm sure you remember the Sudanese revolution by Ala Salah when she was chanting and singing in front of above the car. So women are always the main pillar and the winning card of every movement, specifically in Sudan. While all Sudan was so progressive when it comes to women rights, the previous regime knew very well that they cannot break the Sudanese people unless targeting the strongest part of our community, the Sudanese women. Unfair laws, systemically targeting and directing media to aggressively persecute the women, and misleading use of Islam and religion. All were weapons against not only women of Sudan, but the humanity inside of us. That's one of many reasons that made the December Revolution to be a woman-made and led and framed revolution. I greet all the Kandakas, the Nubian queens of my own country, who have been leading the Sudanese Revolution 2018-2019, been the front line, risking their lives, keeping the revolution spirit moving. But what happened? 50% chances of political representation seats, it's way less than their given rights. The Sudanese current government reduced it by 40% of representation, as if men leading Sudan for past decades took us anywhere less than civil wars and dividing the society. It's a patriarchal lens of their preserving women's qualification in the political spheres. The question now is, how can we develop more? How can we systemically empower the women, educate, protect, and promote their rights? I would say, end child marriages, as you said, end FGM, as we all know, and literacy. We have the right to wear what we want, to think and to have access to higher education, sport facilities, and mental health care. More scholarships in different fields, as you. More support to women's organizations that center what can take us for the next level. It's been a while since the Sudanese feminist movement, all women groups, united around 78 bodies of work together to accumulate the awareness and consciousness of women's rights, forcing the Sudanese society to acknowledge their rights and to create coalition and a collective efforts to grassroots levels to allow more inclusion and eradicate the oppression, inequalities that facing Sudanese women on a daily basis. Let's help and support them. Let's give back what belongs to us, the Sudanese women. But before I finish, I have a request to make to Mr. President. You said at your opening speech, we don't want women to be a second citizen of the world, right? In your statement, I would like to ask you to take care and give more attention personally on the cases of women and the vulnerable women in France. I particularly pointing to undocumented asylum seekers and refugees women who what so-called strangers in France, who are suffering in the street of France with or without their children, whom also are victims of violence, also victims of FGM, also victim of rape, rejected from the AFRA, from the court, and are facing deportation, I would ask you to commit to end those women's suffering in your country and to assist in preserving their dignity. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Mrs. Gazoul, Mr. Walker, Madame Daoui, Madame Adil, je vous remercie infiniment.
Thank you. Thank you very, very much. And now I would ask you to kindly regain your seats because,
Ils peuvent rester là.
oh, may they stay? They may stay up here? Then please.
Mr. Warren, you can stay if you wish to. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very, very much. Thank you. That was so inspiring. I wanted you to stay on the stage. You mentioned Rachel a moment ago. Where is our laureate of the Simone Weil Prize tonight? Ah, Habiba Sarabi. So, ever since we lost Simone Weil, we created a prize in her name to reward those who fight for the cause, as you do. And you'll be telling us more about that. And we've talked about Syria, we've talked about Sudan, but in Afghanistan as well, we know that the struggle has been intense. And I was wondering if you could give us a few words about that so that we could actually conclude today's proceedings altogether.
President, thank you very much for making this opportunity, inviting me to be here. It's really a great pleasure and honor for me to be at this forum. I'm Habiba Sarabi, one of the 4 negotiators that negotiating with Taliban, the Taliban that some of our sister Nadia Murad talked about that. And I'm at the same time the Simone Weil Prize winner, and I'm honored for that because of acknowledgement of my work that I have done for peace education, peace building, and promoting the social peace through the network among women that we call it Mothers of Peace. And also I'm fighting for the women's rights. Girls' education is one of the achievement of my work when I was the governor. So, Mr. President, when I finish this forum, I go directly to Doha to talk with Taliban and to continue this talk. The Taliban, that they don't believe to peace, they don't believe to negotiation. They want to only get the power by violence. So we are showing our commitment that since 10 months they are in Doha to negotiate with them, but they are not willing to that. At the moment, my people are suffering inside Afghanistan. Every day, day by day, the violence are increasing. They are targeting villages, they are targeting and capturing the district level. When they capture the district office, they are demolishing, even blowing the office. And also for the first time, which is the first item that they are issuing, giving a letter that women cannot go out of their home and even not to the clinic. So this is, and neither for education. This is the situation in my country, that of course, within 20 years, by support of international community, including France and United States and the European Union, we have achieved a lot. But all the achievement now, it's on the way to, because I have heard a lot of things about the pushing back. We are getting pushing back to the same that Taliban had a control in Afghanistan. They don't believe to democracy, they don't believe to inclusion. So, of course, our society have been made in from different ethnic group. The especially target group that I belong to, that they are suffering most from Taliban. They are blowing or making the suicide bombing in front of the girls' school and even to the hospital. The infant is, they are killing infant inside the hospital. This type of people, we are there to negotiate with them. So one thing in my message to you, all of you, and all the world is that extremism, the terrorism is, of course, it's very, I mean, a phenomenon that no one can be agree with that, but extremism, keep in mind and remember that today we are suffering from extremism and terrorism in our country, but please keep in mind that tomorrow it will knock every door in the Europe and United States and everywhere. There is the place that I came from. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Merci beaucoup. Thank you very much. First of all, thank you to you, Madam Minister, for having been the moderator today's forum, over and above all of your usual duties and the very varied subjects that you've been able to discuss today, but also wanted to especially thank you. Thank you, heads of state and government. Thank the private sector leaders who've joined us, the organizations leaders who've made commitments here today, such as, for example, the 40 million that we heard of a moment ago. I just wanted to thank every one of you who has agreed to offer your account and your statements today, because there's a story and a life behind each of your statements, and there's that feeling of dignity that should be housed safely in every one of us. But be it violence, be it access to rights, be it equal opportunities. We've talked actually less about economic life and rights, but this is another battle which is right at the heart of the interests of this forum, and it's in our societies where we need to make progress, and we do have a lot to be done back at home, if I could say, because I get to see this every day, and I get to see it with all of the NGOs with whom we discuss. But we will not make any concessions to those who would see us backsliding in the name of equality, in the name of our political life, in the name of our on a political toxic agenda. It's all behind that. And what you said a moment ago, I think, is exactly right. If we do accept it, then we're already on a losing streak. We're already on a path to losing. The Sudanese revolution is an amazing example, because it was a women's peaceful uprising done with strength, and the face of that resistance in Syria is again a feminine face. And Caroline was talking about those women who have done so much to fight for these rights, and the battle that you are waging in Afghanistan again is another important example of where women are at the forefront. Now I think you've been able to show us such courage in the face of the worst calamities, and it's been remarkable to see those examples. And that's why we wanted to be able to promote defenders, as you all are. You're all defending your rights, and I think we need to protect all of those militant activist defenders who are risking their very lives for this cause. This battle, I think, has been said, is also being waged in Turkey, in Poland, in so many countries around the world, and we need to support them. And so I think we need to start at the grassroots, training, education, changing mentalities, so as to enable everyone to access civilization. What was said so beautifully a moment ago, it's the self-determination, that is what is behind dignity. So I didn't have too much to add, but behind all of those figures and commitments made tonight, and behind this forum, there is an ongoing battle, dear Hillary, because we've both been working on this. There are generations that have come before us that have already done so much to pave the way. And then we've got this young, energetic generation of feminists. And I've been quite blown away by you and all of those lives and stories that are part of this. And their children yet to come will continue this struggle. So we have no choice. We have no choice but to continue to keep educating, training our youngsters, eradicating violence, and to fund and protect all of these efforts. So thank you. Keep up with your struggles, with your battles. Keep fighting. And please rest assured of one thing. We share your battle and we will not let you down. We will be there with you, whatever comes our way. Thank you to one and all. Now I'd like all participants to come back up onto the main stage. Everyone who's taken the floor today, come on up so that we can thank you, and thank you very, very much to one and all.
Leur expérience, si vous voulez venir.
Everybody who has given up their time to come and
S'il vous plaît.
kindly come up. Could all of our panelists please make their way up onto the main stage for the final photograph? Thank you.
Oui. Si vous voulez bien aller sur la scène principale.
Could you kindly make your way up onto the main stage and we'll be having a final photo session. A group photo, please. Kindly make your way up.
Yeah. Caroline, emmène-les là-bas. Yes.
Ablijo be moem be hure chiblenka jira ke na won britanji be ngen de para ro bochen ba webe wara colonial faro ke jiji wera da bira munino oje ke wema colonial faro ke o se penye nwine o da baku ke ona nyo private ba woro nkanana ke oje ke webe ma colonial faro ke de be nyitwen ke mo ni jo yu wa brin son be aje nwoni ke nji ko ni pra o ke nji san ni pra ni me jo yi ka be de ro da panwe Benje de diyan bengirin ke kwa menyu wana ke jenyo ke kwa mo igwo nyu ka be na blike de du yin mo yin benge de to be o benyu bengi wana ke bengo yiblanye bengo mbuchen o kinki mo monda benge nyuru mo kwanyi tode soni mo de suike nin mo yin drian kwai boti sembla juke nyi bo mu ke na de soni dre kwai nyi dero yipoi ne me dre kwai o kuni mo we sembla ke ti sembla ke me dre kwai boti pra kuni o tani mo monda benge de benyo pra po ye bengere mu o nyeni mo ne so ke me ba wen chuke nyi ko mu o nyi san ni o munyo ke mo monda benge ni mi memero konne o ni no ji meke nje ku je monda bengo ta o bengo yidu bengo di se pare sa igu de ba ke nyoro o ji fi ba ble o ji yo kwa be na wo je nyoni ke yi ka tre ni be pa pi de mu wura be ni ta to be o wa ko mu monda be ro mo bengo ke bu fwen cha ke chuke de ro jiji de be panton be mu oble fro pa be koni be mu be ko komra nyo be o nyo be wa ne pe nye be ko wa bo chen wura ne zuo bamba mi bo du toje bo tina ka mu bona ke de be so nye omode Ministry of Health program wo bo ke mu
anye pokra wa na wura wa mu sona ti na ji ne be amplede de ne ji be amplede mo kwete omone ojira kunu ambo kwela o dratu nye pojudu akwara ati o patu nye pojudu te o police no o gba wa kunu amu wo o nyine mo coronavirus kan ye nu odade ne kwela o se kureko ajira ba obo fon ne ma be o ji mpona ne na kokure ne shon parem ja na fona mu ne sunu ne tine du anti na shanati e ma be na jira be tijira de kuren ba nu ka na woro ne na woro yi mara ne puam no kunya ne kuti ne be plerem de ne ba nu ore shawa nkpon kra bro akpo ke akwara ati one na bro akpo ete akomba repeti po ne o shankpon jisa de mbe nu na mo botunyi po yudu kwa tutu e ma be mu dere mo ton detenya ne ji ne woto kwe tiwe woto wa kwe wona kwe na bi woto wa wo kare esha be nita semre bi bombo ti troneo e ma be fufo nyepo yudu ifota troni boti bore fufo nyen pape ne e ma be na jira be kokure mo na jira be sha ne pokwa wi na sha ta na kokure ndo wure on se tunyi po yudu ti buburale nimere o mena puro bo nya tuntun mo bo didie ponya kwagbe o ma me ko na gba dero tu de bele mo prosum brekri yo de po e ma be tunyi gboju o foran shone noja mo ti karembe in o fosation ne wura ka na po piteti yo bo tunyi po yudo boti kwane e be tene nyimbe no nya tira bo enu ne e ma be jenyimbe ore o shaotana aniara osha okon ke owo rara oti ne aprere anye fo pore iniane tane aniara ne biyo tijira de kote owo rara tiyo ne puse na pam to wacho na ba ti ko bam no kunya pokreti akre se tipo sara e de tamwa Ministry of Health e mwa kenyo anyo piasra
welcome ambla kaunga twai ulo kpangang ageku para kapo kumuka yi lono e plana crofry yi nyawo apanwe ngabo dakama coronavirus anu pai ngine kwa tamama coronavirus ka crofra yi nyawo anu so kwala mimintama ega gbunu fama ega nuye ton ega nuye tiho tena ya mara ge kobonga gabekele age krohang tahupa kulwe ngamba enu raso aga mage ya betu ge ye ton iwo to poma anele menga ba moi ipela de kema yekula van kema le ga banuma yekula ma hu van ka kanda ka van ka ye yinga wa akporo da ya ten kreno ya kwela li lo kema pa dobosi ba ma aga ya yila sanama igron jambolene ye yinga wa ninga subscriber yinga wa no atenke kle ivole ponju benu tamaka nai ifolina ya ga ba ton iye plela ya ga ba ti hoy iye plela ivole swapoma yi yo gro jambai pama ivo swapon kana to loy ivo je yo mi aga nu da kpuna fama pama nu da awaka newe anele mani age manuti elu sapela de salte bona nui kofaka mai ivo siegwa nu na paka kwesu yi v ananu play kanena ge nuanga de me krong plana manuti ma kase ka wutoy ngulo apaka po akrai nukulu yinga de ka jalme kre ngundo library suba yi da ka da Ministry of Health.
Mama wakadu nsuo ekmere yakon yakwe yakdu ye yakwe me yo ake ya dogyawa ye yo o kapoya ye yo o ukamuya dwe yo afo yo ya siagada wana blebi kakamai
I just wanna thank you.